Hi, this is Brian Roig.
And this is Cyril War, and welcome to the Shaping Spirit podcast, reachable at shapingspiritpodcast@gmail.com, the most non-sectarian spiritual podcast on the planet. We're just two guys from California who accumulated academic degrees and who traveled all over the world studying world spirituality, and we're bringing it all right back here so that we can grow together from digital to spiritual. And the topic for today is
the pitfalls of social media. And this will be
You are lucky. Yeah, for those who are listening, you may not know Brian as well as I do, and I know for a fact that Brian doesn't struggle so much with social media addiction. Right?
I'm not a fan. I think because I have so much to do. Like my days are occupied. 7 days a week I'm occupied. I don't have a lot of downtime. Usually by the end of the night, I'm so exhausted. You know, for me, my social media platform is specifically just for my martial arts school and promoting that. I have a couple of students that help me with that, so I can minimize my utilization, my personal utilization, because for me, it's more annoying than anything else. I'm not a fan. Like we've talked about, I'm very grateful we grew up in a pre-digital age. You know, I like my music analog. I like my life analog. I'm not a fan personally of a lot of digital stuff. I do, before we go any further, for those of you, just because we're always adding some kind of musical element to this, I do want to dedicate this week's podcast to one of my great guitar heroes, Jeff Beck, who just passed away January 10th, 2023. He was definitely an icon and a legend in the world of music. If you think you've never heard him, you have. And all the way back in the mid-'60s, from the Yardbirds moving forward, for 50 plus years, nearly 60 years, he was providing guitar work to many, many artists, and one of my huge musical influences. So I just wanted to dedicate this to him and his memory and his amazing music and individuality. So let's keep talking about this pitfalls of spirituality, man, with social media, because I think this is interesting. Oh, yeah.
I struggle. I struggle. I have a software called Freedom.2, I think. It's a green app that applies to my laptop as well as to my phone. And when I have enough, brain power, I set up sessions that can be up to 24 hours, and you can have them recurring, where, I block myself. Basically, I block myself entirely from all internet, all apps, except, Kindle, except for WhatsApp, so I can have some, conversations with people. And then I just allow, on great days, on perfect days, because I think one thing that we should talk about eventually in this podcast is content, the difference in how differing content has a completely different effect on one's consciousness. Like, I think you agree with me. We start from the premise, and I'm just planting the seed here. We start from the premise that depending on the content that's consumed and, uploaded, the experience of social media will be radically different, right? But closing that parenthesis, I just want to finish my little story here. So I have this website, this app, and as soon as I click start a session, then it applies the rules I gave it. And you know what, Brian? Like, even though I know I have a session that's going on, for example, till tomorrow morning at 7:30, after which I give myself 1 hour to upload the few little things that I upload, and a few things that I do like to see on Instagram and on Facebook. And then when I block myself, so even though I know that I have a session going on, my body and my nervous system is so addicted that even though my intelligence my intelligence tells me like, hey, dude, you like don't even try, because like you're not gonna open Instagram. As soon as you click on Instagram, it closes. Like it tries to open, but it closes it. And same thing on your laptop. So don't even try, dude, because you know very well that you have a session going on till X time tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. And in spite of that, Ryan, like dozens of times, like I have the instinctual pull to like, click on Facebook or to click on Messenger or to click on Instagram. It's scary.
Mm. You know that there's that saying, idle hands are the devil's playthings. You've heard that? So I think, we've just gotten to a point in society as a whole that we have too much free time on our hands. And we're not, globally, I don't think many people are using their time efficiently. I know we've talked about, like, I have a calendar for everything. So basically every hour, for the most part, is blocked out with something. So I know what I'm doing. I move on to the next task. I'm a big fan of, like, what do I need to execute? And, so for me, I think that, people, let's say, I don't know, I've been in stores. I'll use this as the example. I've been in stores, and instead of somebody who works in the store maybe helping me or offering assistance, they're on their phone. That blows my mind. I'm like, why are they allowed to have their phone at the store? Put the phone away or lock it up. Take care of the customer. And even if you're not helping me, there's something you can do. If I'm in a clothing store, I can't tell you how many clothing stores I go into, and it's a mess. There's no reason for that person who works in that store to be sitting there on what I call apping, right? They're just on some stupid app when they could be cleaning the store, putting the clothes away, refolding, putting it on hangers. I've worked in clothing stores before when I was a teenager, and that's what I did. I was so obsessed. See, I guess it's my obsessive mind. I was so obsessed with keeping the store clean and being on top of merchandise and knowing what was available to the customers that I was compelled. If I saw a shirt hanging improperly on a hanger, I'd freak out and I'd have to run around and fix it. So,
and you didn't have the distraction. You didn't have the distraction of social media. I didn't
have the distraction, but even the opportunities for distraction now, I just find it like I'm sure you've also heard the term psychic vampire, right? I think it's very vampiric. I feel like we all have units of energy or attention that exist in us on a daily basis. And let's say we have a total, I'm just going to use a basic number that everybody can wrap their heads around. Let's say you have a total of 10 units of energy or awareness on a daily basis. What are you going to give your energy to? Because it starts to deplete. Well, if 1 unit of energy is going to go to my morning workout, I'm going to have, say, 3 units of energy that are going to go to my daily work, right? My daytime work. I've got another unit of energy that's going to go to my martial arts instruction at night. If my kids are with me, I've got a particular unit or 2 of energy that is devoted to that. So you go from 10 to 0 pretty quickly, and then if you're just constantly, it's like draining a battery quicker. If you're just constantly on some type of internet thing and it's not your job, you're not making money from it, why are you doing it? Like that's to me, it's just like, it's such a time waster. I'm like, I'd rather be figuring out a way to like grow and develop and move, but that's just me. I think that, there's a lot of negativity around what we have with social media. I was looking up some stats, if I can share with you. So I don't know if you were aware, maybe you were, because I know you were looking at a lot of stuff too. So what are the top social media websites in the world?
You're asking
I'm
me?
asking you.
Or you're asking our listeners?
I'm asking both, but you're the one talking to me right here, right?
Well, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Messenger.
So let's look at the top 5. Here we go. Number 1, Facebook with 2.9 billion monthly average users. Number 2 is YouTube with 2.2 billion. Number 3 is WhatsApp with 2 billion. 4 is Instagram with 2 billion. 5, TikTok with 1 billion. And I'm sure TikTok is more now. I know they're trying to ban TikTok in the United States. But it's pretty gnarly when you just look at that top 5 alone.
Make sure to speak in your mic, though, by the way. Sorry
to
embarrass you in public.
No, it's fine. So when you look into these numbers here, the top 5 alone, outside of WhatsApp, which is primarily for communication, right? All these other things are, for the most part, time wasters. This is where you just become zombified. Facebook, YouTube, you can learn from, but how many people are actually using it as a learning tool?
Well, here I guess we have to talk about content. Mm-hmm. I think maybe this is a good segue to talk about content. Not all content is the same. This is kind of like maybe the spiritual dimension of social media, if we may. Like correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that you also, like me, take it for granted, just assume, or on faith or whatever, from experience, we accept as a premise that there is a fundamental, like ontological difference between what we could generally categorize as spiritual content and material content. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But the draw.
This morning, when I was taking a walk on the beach here in Tulum, doing my morning meditation, I had this realization that the reason why, because the reason why social media is so addictive, right? And like you perfectly said, so useless for most of it in terms of a time waster, actually stems, we could say, from our own consciousness. And I'll give you a graphic example that, involves, for example, a heterosexual male, okay? So, and I'll start from the premise that most of us conscious beings on Earth are unfortunately not enough riled up and excited by spiritual content, be it visual or audio, and unfortunately very much, engrossed in and enamored by material content, right? Example, like take a normal, let's say heterosexual male, show him a picture of a beautiful naked woman, right? And show him a picture, let's say, of Buddha or Christ or, I don't know, Mother Mary or an avatar or some, or a famous quote by Lao Tzu or whatever, some spiritual content, right? In most cases, unless the dude is like super advanced spiritually, his consciousness, his senses will gravitate towards the former, right, content, right? And so that speaks to that speaks about our consciousness, how, the wisdom of the East sometimes describes the human condition as being jaundiced. Mm-hmm. You know that example of the jaundice? Jaundice is being a medical condition, which apparently is like a bilious secretion in the liver, and everything you taste that's sweet by nature is actually bitter. It tastes bitter, but it's actually sweet. But it tastes bitter because you have jaundice, okay. Right? So coming back to that's the human condition. So by definition, any spiritual content, by definition, in its pure state, by definition, we would assume is sweet, is beautiful, is uplifting, and in that sense should be completely enthralling, right? But because we have this jaundice, because we are sort of like, materially dirty or whatever you want to describe it as, fallen, conditioned, disconnected, the unfortunate result is that we experience spiritual content as bitter, as boring, right? And on the other hand, that content which is material in nature, we relish when actually it's really not that good for us, in terms of our consciousness. So this morning I was like, the reason why social media is so addictive is that even though you may have spiritual content on your feed, like let's say you're a Christian, you've subscribed to many Instagram Christian groups where you get quotes from the Bible, or quotes from this saint or that saint, or pictures of I don't know, of Bethlehem, and pictures of Jesus, or generally, again, you won't be that attracted to them as you would towards, some mundane, I don't know, like what someone's eating, or what the latest tweet against, Elon Musk is, or what's up with, Andrew Tate, or, or what's happening with Ukraine, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's your thought?
I don't know. To me, it's a bit unrelatable because I just don't have that much time. I have 24 hours in the day. I'm packed, man. I mean, my goal is always like, first of all, I don't ever get 8 hours of sleep. And my Fitbit watch tells me my goal is 8 hours of sleep. I'm lucky if I get 6 because I'm jammed nonstop. So I don't have that luxury. I wouldn't even call it a luxury. It's just like I don't have that ability to just stop and do that because.
Okay, Brian, but most people do. Most people are not as lucky as you are, we would say. Even though people have jobs, a lot of people suffer from social media addiction, or they waste whatever little time they do have uselessly on social media.
I don't know.
Right?
So I'm looking at this thing. Okay. So let's look at another stat here, and let's figure out what this means to your presentation, to your argument. It says an average user spends 2.5 hours daily on social media in 2022. Half of our time on our phones is reserved for social media. Facebook is the most popular, costing people an average of 58 minutes a day. YouTube takes an average of 19 minutes daily. So, based on your premise, okay, 2.5 hours a day, social media. That still gives you, what, 21.5 hours? Subtract 8. I mean, let's just do the math really quick.
So there's no pitfalls to social media then?
There's plenty of pitfalls. I'm just saying that people are using excuses. So we have 24 minus 2.5 minus 8. Okay? So you have 13.5 hours in the day to organize yourself and kick ass, even if you're organizing 2.5 hours of nonsense. So what are you doing then? Let's just break it down. What is a person doing in that 13.5 hours? Again, how scheduled are they? How organized are they? And here's the other thing, okay? And I'm going to tie this right back into Jeff Beck in terms of why he was such an impactful guitar player and what made him so different. Most people, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, everybody's got one, follow social media because they are afraid to be independent. They're afraid to be independent-minded, and they are so obsessed with what everybody else is doing. I don't give a shit what anybody's doing. That's the thing. I'm so consumed with what I'm doing and how I'm trying to make things better and help people, I could care less what anybody's doing. And people are...
Well, you don't have heroes. You don't have people you look up to. You have people you follow.
Not like that. No,
I do.
I mean, I saw that Jeff Beck passed away, but I can listen to his music. But what is there to follow? The point being, let me just go with my.
But I know you have spiritual mentors.
But let me go with my point here. I don't follow it on social media. I subscribe to podcasts. I listen to podcasts. I read books. But my point is people are. There's that saying, keeping up with the Joneses. People are so obsessed with what their neighbor is doing and with what other people are doing to seek their own validation. They don't have enough personal strength to be their own person, be their own individual. And it's that lack of individuality and lack of confidence in being an individual that makes people, in my opinion, addicted to this thrill of what other people are doing. You become so voyeuristic and so obsessed with what everybody else is doing, you forget that you have your own mission in life. Who gives a shit what anybody else is doing? You should have your own mission. You should be so focused and so obsessed with what you are doing to change the world for better that what anybody else is saying or doing should be irrelevant. And unless you are surrounded with people or have mentors, like you were saying, somebody that's going to impress upon you your forward trajectory in terms of some types of spiritual positivity, why are you listening to them and why are you doing it? Jeff Beck, getting back to Jeff Beck, why was he so impactful musically? He did not follow the path of his peers. When everybody else was playing certain styles of music, Jeff Beck went out, when he did his first two solo records in the late 60s, it was like more of a jazz fusion combination thing. He's covering "'Cause We Ended as Lovers," the old Stevie Wonder song. He's doing stuff that was so brilliant and so off the wall and so unique that it made everyone else stop and listen and go, holy cow, why can't I do that? Because they're so obsessed with copying each other. That's all social media is. It's monkey see, monkey do. And I think that's why I have such an irritation about it, because like we've talked about before, I've been categorized as a lone wolf. I'm a very independent person. And I could care less what other people do. And I think that's the issue. People are so obsessed with what other people are doing and so obsessed with keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, I don't have a Tesla. Oh, I didn't get a G-Wagon. Oh, I need to check out what this new convertible Rolls-Royce SUV looks like. Boy, I wish I could get that. Oh my God, I need those shoes. Who gives a shit? Are you serious? This is what somebody's obsessed with? Like, what? Why? Like, it's so, for me, it's so counter to my nature that I can't even fathom the obsession. But I understand and I empathize with the fact that I think probably 99% of people are obsessed with what their neighbor is doing. I just care less.
Have you heard of a guy called, the author of a book called Deep Work?
I think you mentioned it before.
His name is, what is his name? Carl Newport. Guy who teaches at IIT, I think, or has a PhD from IIT, one or the other. Yeah, he wrote this book called Deep Work, which I listened to. I listened to the audiobook. And the dude has never had any social media. He just has a YouTube channel where he does a podcast, right? And his argument basically is, like you were talking at the beginning about your, there's only like 10 points of like cognitive power that you have, and one for your kids, one for your work, one for your martial arts, one for your music, etc., right? So his argument, based on scientific research, is that apparently in terms of neurosciences, every time a human changes tasks, goes from one task to another, there's some cognitive energy that's spent. Like they talk about writers, like, if you're in the flow and then you go check your email, or you get distracted, then to get back into the flow takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time. And that translates into this sort of cognitive energy. And so his point is that our society with social media especially has become so fragmented that we are just going from one task to another, interrupting this one to go to that one, It's just like nonstop, right? I mean, look at TikTok. Like they say, like we have the attention span of freaking goldfish.
Remember, I was telling you about that when Timothy Leary predicted that 30 years ago. He was talking about realities per minute, and now we have it. It's scary, man.
Wow,
it's frightening.
So when you tally up the used up cognitive power or points or energy at the end of the day, you got tons of this cognitive energy that was just wasted just so that your consciousness or your mind or intelligence could readjust to the next task and to the next task, or going back to the original task, right? So his point, his thrust, which is symbolized in the title of his book, Deep Work, is that those people, those human beings in this age, and this age in which we live in right now, those who will actually have the edge, those who will actually succeed, those who will actually be alpha, are and will be those who are able to do deep work. In other words, one task at a time, deep, no interruption, so that you save up all that cognitive energy that everybody else is just wasting out the window because they're just going from one fragmented thing to the other.
I like that.
You like that?
Yeah.
I just listened to another thing. Actually one of his episodes, a podcast, and he mentions 4 perks. Can I just tell you these 4 perks of not using social media? I found them really interesting, very insightful. The first one he mentioned is that there's something to be said about boredom. Like boredom is a motivator for achievement, for imagination, for artistic production, for streaks of geniuses. But when you always have the little gadget in your hand, and as soon as, boredom kicks in, boom, you're just scrolling up and down, right? So boredom has become eliminated from man's life, right? So when you don't have social media, you actually can experience boredom again, which actually is a great source of peace also, and of a moment to sit with your own self and think about what you like, what you don't like, just like it slows down the whole system tremendously. Second thing he talks about, the other perk is, which I found great, is leisure, quality leisure. Like when you don't have social media, there's chances that you're going to do something that's actually quality in leisure that you would not do if you're just like, like a couch potato and you're just like scrolling on your phone while munching on potato chips. If you don't have social media, well, wow, I'm going to go on a hike. I'm going to go to a museum. I'm going to actually see someone in flesh and blood and speak to her or speak to him, Third thing he talked about is privacy. These algorithms are just crazy. Like I went to see Avatar 2 the other day in Playa del Carmen. And on the way there, my friend with whom I was going to see it, and his girlfriend, he's really into crypto, and so we talked for a good time about the benefits he believes of having Bitcoin. And lo and behold, like this morning or the day after, as I'm just looking at YouTube, suggested video, why Bitcoin is a great scam, or the greatness of Bitcoin, like. Shit, like, can you believe it? Like, your phones are actually like spying on you and listening to your conversations, and then, presenting to you content corresponding to what the freaking algorithm heard through your own phone. And you're thinking you're having a private conversation in the privacy of your car. It's insane. And finally, the last point, I don't want to hog the mic here, but they're so good. The last point is actually, it's kind of a psychological thing having to do with humility and with ego. And it's like when you're not on social media, your artificially, created precisely by these big tech companies, sense of self-worth and self-importance is reduced, is gone. Like when you have social media, you're thinking, wow, I've got 50 people who liked my video yesterday, or who gave me a thumb up yesterday, or who gave me a heart. So, wow, I'm so important. There's all these people who are waiting for my next piece of content, right? Whereas when you don't have social media, it's like, hello, dude, you're just really not that important. And nobody really is that important. And we've got a few significant others that we actually deal with in the flesh, and just chill, dude. So not having social media brings us back to a sense of humble harmony with the universe, with the divine.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think those are all really good points. And here's the other thing. I think that one of these issues with social media, you kind of touched on it, and I'd like to maybe expand on it a little bit, is that instead of it becoming a tool for communication, a tool for business networking, or say spiritual networking, a tool for education, it's become personalized, where everything we say or do or everything we engage in is personal. It becomes deeply personal. on an emotional and psychological level. And that's what ends up becoming incredibly draining. So it's
Like
I
Twitter
guess,
fights?
yeah, like I said, I don't even know how Twitter works. I mean, this is how, I guess, out of it I am. I know people get on and they argue back
What?
and forth.
Come again? Say
But
that again.
I know it also recently came out where I think they said like something 80 or 90% of what was actually on Twitter were bots. So it was like it was all like
wow.
AI and robots creating arguments amongst people. Something else I just heard, which was fascinating to me, is that they said that majority of the spiritual websites, the Christian-based spiritual websites, were run by bots, and they were creating factions within these religious communities and arguments just to mess with people.
That's sick, man.
So to me, it's just like when I'm posting, again, I can only speak from a personal experience.
Sick.
When I am posting something on social media, it is directly related to my business. I don't take it personal if somebody looks at it or doesn't look at it. I go, okay, what was the most relevant content? And I look at it as a tool. Go, what was I able to communicate and what was my return on investment? How many followers did I get? Or did I get somebody new to sign up to my gym? It's like basic things like that, but it's not an emotional personal investment, because I know at the end of the day, all of this is fake. You have this thing now where Facebook or whatever they want to call themselves, they have this metaverse where people are paying money to live in a video game, buy real estate in a video. It's just like, oh my God, that scares the hell out of me. My kids play Nintendo, they play Xbox, whatever, but they know full well that everything they do on these video game systems, when I allow them to play it, it's fake. It's fairy tale. It's all make-believe. It's not real. And it scares the hell out of me that you have all these people now, thousands or millions of people that are saying, oh, I need to join the metaverse or virtual reality. So what's in front of them tangibly here isn't good enough. So they have to go on the computer and sit on the computer all day and do like all kinds of nonsense, to the point where people have gotten so obsessed. And I know of people that have done this, and you get like these computer programmers or somebody. I heard about a computer programmer that one of the reasons why this individual was a very strange individual and was disturbed anyways mentally. But one of the reasons that caused this person's divorce was he was so obsessed with video games and being in, like, say, a metaverse style thing, that he would create code for the video game to play on his behalf while he was asleep. Talk about mindless. Talk about zombie, man.
And you have this
zombie. That is so mentally. That's mental illness 101 right there, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's being fed to us with this, you've heard of predictive programming?
Tell me about it.
This notion of, it's kind of conspiratorial, but it makes sense when you actually look at the media and the movies that come out. This type of programming is like normalizing through, for example, movies, what, powerful agents, sometimes evil powerful agents, want, humanity to go towards too. Right. So for example, you have, Blade Runner, the second Blade Runner that came out, where, you have basically artificial intelligence that has taken over. You can go back to 2001 with Stanley Kubrick's 2000: A Space Odyssey. This idea that technology or AI, has overrun human beings or that, everything, the Internet of Bodies, how, you can't get out of your eyes scan when you go into your office, and everything is done by chips and, and like this transhumanistic agenda, we could say. And we see it in movies, and it's like, it's kind of like a feature trailer of what's coming, or what we want society to become, right? And what you were talking about, namely people becoming completely addicted to to their virtual so-called reality, over and above what's actually real in the real, first degree perceptual world that we see and hear and think of, without any mediated intermediary, is scary.
Yeah,
it's really scary.
It's alarming. And to bring it back to that point in that book, I think the few people that are going to be able to have that separation and not get sucked in to this virtual reality, the social media.
Let me guess, are people who are spiritually strong?
They're going to have to be, absolutely, they're going to have to be spiritually strong, but they're going to be the ones that are going to have to lead the world. They are going to have to take humanity by the hand and guide them, because these people are so misguided. These people that are so obsessed, this obsession is creating such a level of misguidance. Imagine if you were, just let's go back to that example, right? Imagine if you're married and you're so obsessed with your virtual reality that you don't even want to engage your wife, that you can't even talk to a human being, because whatever's on that computer, whatever's in that virtual verse or whatever the hell they call it, is that much more important. You can't connect on a human level. In my opinion, for what it's worth, the only way.
There's all this stuff about porn people. People who are addicted to porn, they can't have actual sex with people who.
Well, yeah, intimacy's out the window with these different types of stimulants these days. But what ends up happening is how can you grow spiritually if you cannot connect with the thing that is the basic reflection of divine love, is loving other human beings, starting with that, creating love, interpersonal love, which is in front of you. That is our basic sandbox of learning in terms of how to create divine love. Because, from our perspective, from our spiritual perspective, the divine has equally masculine and feminine qualities, right? It's both masculine and feminine. And so how we express ourselves, between two people, doesn't matter if you're straight or gay, in any relationship. There's one energy that is masculine, there's one energy that is feminine, regardless of your gender identification and regardless of who you choose to love. I don't care if it's two women, two men.
And so
my whole point is this is the example. We have to learn how to create our content with interpersonal relationships, not social media. Proper content is with actual interpersonal relationships, and that's what teaches us how to love God. That's what teaches us. How do I love my partner?
We're getting more and more towards the Matrix, Brian.
It scares the hell out of me, man. It scares the hell out of me.
We're getting closer to the Matrix. It seems like that movie with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
That thing is like the gold standard of what, the ultimate agenda is. And you know what was really weird when I saw Avatar? So there's this whole, as you know, in the first Avatar, there's this notion of connecting your tail. Yeah, connecting your tail to the the great tree of life, or the great mother, But there's this visual element to it, which is so, like at the very beginning of Avatar 2, you have this baby who's born, this Na'vi baby, right? And right away they plug him in, they plug his tail from the back of his neck. You see it from the back of his neck, and they plug it right into this network, to tell you the truth. Now the network looks really organic, and it's green and blah blah blah, but it's a freaking network. And so just the imagery of humans, from the back of their head, right where their neck is, being connected to a network is, being fed with, a veneer of jungleness. But that image of, being connected to a network at your very young age is being fed to us, and it's scary. It's really scary. You see people on the beach, like you see couples, right? Like a couple, like in a romantic moment, and they're both in their own little world, looking at their phones.
I hate that. It drives me nuts. That's one of my pet peeves with people. It's just like, if you're in front of me, put your damn phone away.
Like, don't you? Yeah, don't you?
I find it so insulting. I'll give you a funny story really quick. People are gonna, probably really hate me for this, but whatever. I don't care. This is just my personality. Years ago, when cell phones first came out, I was on a date with a girl. This is 20 years ago. And I take her to the movie, and instead of just being present with me talking, but even before the movie started, she's just playing on this phone. And she's on the phone. I go, look, I'm going to need you to put that away. And, we're going to have the movie start soon. The previews are going to go on. Otherwise, we're going to leave. And she's like, oh, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly she doesn't respect my time and she doesn't respect me as an individual. So I told her again, look, I need you to put that phone away. Otherwise, I'm going to leave. And she's like, oh, I don't care. That's fine. Whatever. She's like, it's not a big deal. The movie hasn't started. I'm like, the previews are coming on.
Oh.
The previews run and she's on the phone. I'm like, this is so disrespectful, not to me, just to me, but to the entire room. All right, I'm out. I literally got up, walked out, and left her there. And I never spoke to her again. And I know she tried calling me to apologize, left me some messages. I'm so sorry, you were right, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I don't play that. My expectation, and this is just basic human courtesy and respect, and it's so sad to me that we've gotten away from this level of respect, is that when you're with me, or you're with anyone, never mind me, if you're with your spouse, your partner, your friends, or whatever, put that damn phone away. It's not an emergency, okay? If it was an emergency, guess what? The police would be there, the fire department would be there, something would happen. The percentage of emergencies that happen are very, very few in your life. In your life. Okay, so for you to, or if it's that big of a deal, okay, leave the phone on so that the only person that can ring through are those 2 or 3 people that an emergency could happen to that you would actually care about. And that's what I do. I can select on my phone who I can hear from. And so as I select who I hear from, I can leave the phone on. It's not near me. It's not on me. But if it's that important, they can ring through. Outside of that, the phone's on silent when I'm with somebody, and that level of respect, I think, is lost in most people these days. They're so obsessed because they need to know what else is out there, right? It's never what's good enough is right in front of you. It's always, well, what's better? There's something better.
And it's an addiction. It's that, that dose of, what's it called?
Yeah,
that
dopamine.
Chemical in the brain.
Dopamine hit.
Right? It's so, not to put the blame completely away from the people, but when you're a heroin addict, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like
I agree.
So coming back to the content, I do look, I get lost in wasting time on social media precisely because I totally think I'm part of that large percentage, or forget others. I for sure have this jaundice, where anything spiritual, kind of boring. Anything material, from gossip to other things, is like, wow, delicious, right? So, but having said that, the reason why I don't want to get off social media, and I don't think I'm lying to myself, is because I do have. Now you scare me because when you say that, these. Not that I have so many, it's not like I follow tons of Christian profiles, okay, or accounts, but what you said, they're created by bots to create dissension, that's like taking the whole thing at another level. That's really scary. But assuming that, the things that I follow actually are legit and do give me inspiration, whether it's, audio bits or visuals of places of pilgrimage or, famous quotes from ancient wisdom texts that inspire me, or I have some I have some sort of spiritual heroes out there, and I love to see where they are and what they're doing, how they're inspiring others, right? So that spiritual content, I would say, that content is spiritual and is absolute by nature. It's spiritual by nature, and therefore it does, even though it's perceived through a software, a mechanism which was designed to be highly addictive and highly addictive to the material content, which makes up 99% of the entire content. Still, it's grounding. It's grounding, and I just cannot imagine how people who don't have, any sort of spiritual life can spend, hours and hours on end on social media, just ingurgitating, consuming material thing after material thing after material thing after material content after material content. It's like, oh my God, like tap out, please, So my advice to listeners is that, look, if you don't want to get off social media, and there's a lot of people who do say you should get off social media completely, at least then, regulate yourself. Like, be honest and analyze how much time you're spending. And if necessary, buy some software that, enables you, like we were describing at the beginning, to permit yourself to have only X amount of hours or minutes a day on social media. And also make sure to consume spiritual content. And again, that whether it's Jewish or Christian or Hindu or Buddhist or Native American or whatever, But if you can somehow connect to spiritual content, and as you're scrolling this garbage, boom, you get a spiritual content that uplifts your consciousness, that uplifts your soul, then it's a grounding, then it's an anchor in an ocean in a tempest, That's what I would advise. What would you advise listeners?
I think the first thing would be present when you're around others. It's I think the biggest challenge is twofold. One, we're so obsessed with social media and the internet and all this virtual world when we're alone. How does it pour into our engagement, our interpersonal relationships, and our engagement with others? So number one, my recommendation is practice being present. And that's a hard thing to do, because I've said to people, "Hey, put your phone away. I'm right here." Well, but what if this happens? Well, put it away. Oh, I have to look something up. No, you don't. Guess what? If we need to look something up that bad, let's get a dictionary. Let's get a book and look it up. Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever see Fahrenheit 451?
So, that would be the first thing. Practice being present with others. And practice, we've kind of talked about this before, and this is something maybe we can do a podcast on it. Practice active listening. If you don't know what actual active listening is, look it up. Maybe we'll do a podcast on it and practice, go over techniques in active listening. But hearing is different from listening. You hear birds, you hear all kinds of things, but active listening is true engagement and actually being present in a conversation or being present with those people around you. So that would be the first thing to me. And then, if it's something that you are so compelled to do when you're alone, ask yourself, what other ways can I be spending my time right now? Now, if it's something like, I need a 5-minute break from my work schedule. Some people have very hectic work lives. I get it, right? I've been
Take
working.
A break, right?
Let's say, man, it's a hardworking guy. He's working at a construction zone all day. He just wants to get on Facebook for 20 minutes and say what's up to his friends, see whose birthday it is. And I appreciate that. I get it. And I'm not talking about that type of person. What I am talking about a lot is younger people and these teenagers and kids that I see. They're so obsessed. They're just sitting on the couch or they're sitting on the floor or they're obsessed. I was driving the other day to go get my kids. This is so scary to me. And there's a young man driving next to me, looked like early 20s. Neither of his hands were on the wheel, both of his hands were on the phone while he's driving, trying to drive straight as he's messaging people, looking at whatever. So I'm looking over. I was like, son of a bitch, look at this guy. Like, well, here we go. This is like accident ready to happen. And he's got it mastered. I was impressed. I was impressed with how well he could literally navigate the road basically with a knee, right? And both hands and staring at the phone, not even looking at the road. I was just like, wow. And he's driving some beat up crappy car, but it's too extreme. If we can start practicing being present, when you're present, I think automatically you start to develop more kindness and empathy for others. And then I want to enjoy that, listening to somebody that I care about. Now, I'm saying all this, and I am not the most social person in the world. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to go to a park and start chatting with people. I'm not the social guy at a party. I'm more the fly on the wall. If I have to go to a party, I'm already planning my exit strategy because I don't want to socialize. There's very few subjects I really enjoy talking about. This is just me. I'm being honest. Okay. Everybody has their flaws. I have plenty of them. There's a lot of stuff I'm just not interested in. So, but if somebody has a good story where they want to talk about something deeply personal about their life, and it's not some super, can you believe what the weather was today? Oh my God. Then, hey, I'm all for it. I want to hear something you're struggling with. If something you want to share and you want help with, I'm all ears, but I don't want to engage in any idle gossip. I don't want to hear anything negative about other people. And, it's just all of that kind of stuff is just like, it's nastiness to me. I don't want to engage in any type of partisan politics, and, any sectarianism. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, one thing we realized, and we know for a fact, we are the most, if not the only truly non-sectarian spiritual podcast on the planet. We do not care what your background is. We don't care what your religion is. Remember, your religion is your spice of your meal. We don't care. Our goal is how do we come together in embracing each other to uplift each other spiritually in terms of developing a closer connection to the divine and outreach and outpouring love and compassion for others. That's what it's about. Nothing else. We're not sitting here saying, hey, if you give us $5,000, we're going to help you turn it into $1 million. There's no spiritual charlatanism here. Okay? Yeah.
No, we don't say that. We say if you give us $5,000, we'll turn it into $1 billion.
So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Anyway.
I mean, this is a hot topic, and we've been at it here. It's a hot topic.
I think we did. We went around the wagon.
And I think ultimately, right? I think you would agree. This is a very personal decision where people are going to have to kind of be self-reflective and self-critical. Go, well, what can I do differently?
Yeah,
how do I engage people differently? If you are in a relationship, are you present with your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever they are to you? Are you present with your partner? Or are you so obsessed with your phone that you can't put the phone down? Or you're so obsessed with your metaverse that you can't even touch your partner or engage them and ask them about their day and actually have a real conversation because you're too busy playing video games or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Treat the people around you with at least the very smallest amount of respect, which is to be present and to be an active listener and to show some empathy. And the fact that these types of characteristics are becoming distasteful, and these characteristics are foreign now to younger generations. It's foreign. You look at young people. How many teenagers do you know can survive without their phone for an hour?
Yeah,
it's almost impossible. They freak. They literally freak out.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a documentary some years back already in China. Like there's these camps where teenagers are sent to like recover from internet addiction, and you see them like going through withdrawal symptoms where they're like literally like screaming, crying, freaking out, as if, you know, someone's like who's fiending for his heroin dose. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen it with people. I've seen it with kids where they start throwing tantrums, right? If they can't have their iPad or their phone, they literally will have meltdowns. And it's just like, wow, what did you do here? What's going on?
Right.
You know, it's scary. That, you know, look, when we grew up, we played with other kids. We hung out and we talked. We built relationships. That doesn't exist anymore. You see a group of teenagers, they're all sitting around, quote, hanging out, and everybody's on their phone.
But they're all on their own phone.
It's like, what are you doing? Then what are you doing together? And then they're texting each other. I'm like, you do realize the person's sitting right there. You can put the phone away. I mean, goodness gracious. I know that there were bands. I'll stop with this. There were bands that were banning cell phones at their shows. Not because it had to do with pirating the music, but because they wanted the audience to be present and actually listen to the music.
Right.
So they made everybody, if you want to use your phone, number one, it was put in a bag that you cannot unlock, that it had to be unlocked by security once you leave the arena. You can use it, but then it gets resealed and locked once you go back into the arena to listen to the music. I love that. Enjoy the show, man. Just be present. Why people don't want to be present? It just blows my mind.
So let us continue then, being strong spiritually and being, like you say, you know, present. And I think if we continue doing that, if we continue being aware of the pitfalls as we described them, then we can navigate, you know, pretty safely through this minefield.
Shaping Spirit Podcast at gmail.com, people.
Send us any message. Thank you for listening. Remember, we are much more than our physical bodies.
But we
are not matter.
We all matter. Thank you so much for all listening.